Welcome to the Pickleball Recovery Podcast, where we highlight products and practices to help you feel better faster, so you can spend less time stiff, sore, and injured, and more time on the court doing what you love. This podcast is sponsored by AlloMD. Don't just mask pain, eliminate it. AlloMD provides intense relief and advances continual repair for both acute injuries and chronic pain. All-natural, patented technology developed by doctors to get you back in the game fast without the use of opioids, steroids, or NSAIDs. AlloMD, harnessing the power of pure natural ingredients that provide deep, penetrating repair. Patented, validated, natural. Learn more at www.allomd.com and make sure to use the discount code PBR at checkout to save $5 off your order. What's up? Hey, how you doing? It's Tim Ringgold, your host for Pickleball Recovery. How you doing? You having a good day? Did you play any pickleball yet today? I'm going to be out on the court this afternoon. I'm super excited. Got a lesson and some live ball looking forward to. But let's jump right in by first me shouting out a great new pickleball podcast. If you haven't heard it yet, it is called 4-0 to Pro. Bite-sized pickleball tips, tricks, and tactics. And it's by my buddies Scott Fliegelman and Michael O'Neill. And they focus on a single aspect of the game in each podcast episode. And the episodes are usually like 20 to 30 minutes. And I just listened to one. It was funny. I was going to shout them out. And I was just like, oh, I should probably listen to it before I do that. There's an idea. And ironically, their episode 11 was how to play better and not get hurt. What are your warm-ups? How are your warm-ups? Are you warming up your body as well as your shots? Yeah, I love they are beating the same drum, because when you move better, you play better and you feel better the rest of the day. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed since I've really embraced taking care of my body in the 5 minutes before I start playing and the 5 minutes after. And it's probably more like 10 minutes before and 30 minutes after. I spend a lot of time stretching these days after I play. But if I just take the time when I'm on court before I pick up my paddle and warm up my body, like heat it up physically, and then just take the time when I put my paddle down, don't walk off the court, just take the time to stretch. One, the number of injuries I've had in 2023 is like nothing compared to what 2022 was like. And the number of tournaments and events I've played is I think I've already played more events this year than I did last year, injury free. But two, it's just how much better I feel the rest of the day when I'm not on the court. I got to tell you, like, you know, that the struggle is real. If you're over 40, you can just really hurt a lot. So I'm very grateful to have been learning these processes and practices and adding them into my own exercise diet, if you will. And can't recommend you doing the same. And just love the interaction between Michael and Scott. They're both great on the mic, great personalities, lots of really good insights. And the way they set up the podcast is that Scott's the pro and Michael's the 4-point something, and he's kind of working his way up. And so they have a great kind of dynamic. So check it out, 4-0 to Pro. All right, so let's get into today's episode. We are back with Heather Hiniker again, because when I interviewed Heather the first time around at her facility, she had this like space age contraption there that was so cool. And I was like, what is that? It wasn't the PEMF, it wasn't Beamer, it was something completely different. And it's called CVAC. And I wanted you to hear about this, because this is the future of recovery. As this technology is able to scale and be replicated and opened around the country, this is going to be a game changer for all of us. So this is going to be one of those things where you're going to be like, oh, I remember hearing about that, or I remember seeing that. And, hopefully we'll be the first people to plant this seed for you. Heather is the president and CEO of Ascent, Adaption, and Regeneration Center in Newport Beach out here in Southern California. And they just have like literally all the cutting edge, leading edge modalities for helping all of us really heal faster, recover faster, and just play the game of life better. but for you and me specifically, play some pickleball better. All right. So sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. I will see you on the other side. Heather Hiniker, welcome back to Pickleball Recovery.
So happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Round 2.
Yes.
Here we are.
Cannot wait.
That's right. We are back at your clinic. What do you like to use the word to describe your space?
Facility.
Facility.
Yeah. I mean, because we work with so many professional athletes, and a lot of times clinic is a little medical. So
There you go.
Definitely.
Facility.
Yes.
Very good. So we're back and we're in your office. We're in the secret headquarters
Yes.
right now, away from all of your clients who are getting healed out there today. And we're going to talk about a pretty cool, I'm going to call it space age technology. I'm going to use irresponsible words and then you'll rein me in. But when we first met and you took me on a tour of your facility, you were like, and here are the pods.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at these things and I thought like flight simulator. I thought Star Wars game, like, you know, when you close it, like the screen will like suddenly come alive. But what we're really talking about is CVAC.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, CVAC.
Yes, it's an acronym.
It's an acronym, and it stands for
Cyclic Variations in Adaptive Conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mouthful.
It just rolls right off your tongue, doesn't it?
It does.
Which is why we love a good acronym.
Yeah.
Right? We're like CVAC. Yeah, that's really good. So let's kind of talk, first of all, how and when did you get introduced to this technology?
Yeah.
Start there.
So it was actually the first technology I had experienced a little over 13 years ago.
Okay.
So I know last time we kind of touched on how I got into this realm. So
Yep.
I'm not going to go over all of that again, but I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis
Yep.
and I was looking for alternative ways to put in remission because
Yep.
Western medicine wanted to put me on that low dose chemotherapy and just wasn't an option for me at the time.
Get it?
So I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And this guy was talking about how his father secured a CVAC pod for him to open a business with. And I'm like, CVAC pod? Sounds weird. He talked about small studies that they had gone through. So, you know, there's little studies on fibromyalgia, chronic pain. And at the time, I was debilitated. Like every single joint I had inflammation. Couldn't use my hands and I couldn't, you know, I think I touched last time, couldn't dress my daughter, couldn't walk upstairs. It was a whole thing. Couldn't do anything really. And so he said, what do you have to lose? Just come in and try it. I get it next week. And I'm like, okay. And when you're in that much pain, there's really, for me, I was willing to try anything.
Yes.
So I looked at this thing. I was like, bring it. I was not intimidated by it whatsoever. You get in, you know, I felt some pressure changes in my ears, but basically over a series of weeks, what this device did, and it was the only thing I changed, my inflammation began to dissipate so significantly and so rapidly, it opened my eyes to this whole world.
Okay.
And so at the time, I was sharing with everyone, and we'll go into what it is and
Yep.
what it's doing.
Yep.
But at the time, I was sharing with everyone, wow, like I'm actually functioning again as a mom, as a human. And he goes, I've never seen anything like it. You know, you're talking about it, bringing people in, you want to do business together. And I was super naive at the time and said, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. And we found out very fast that we had different work ethic. And so I ended up buying him out, acquiring a second pod, changing the name of the business and going out on my own. And that was about 12 and a half years ago that we've had Ascent, Adaptation, and Regeneration.
Okay.
We started thinking we were just going to have CVAC pods. So in my head, I thought, this is the miracle pod. I'm going to have 6 and we're going to have a line down the street. Well, within about a year, I blew through my 401k and was living literally month to month.
Wow.
And if it wasn't for the professional athletes that were coming in and, you know, a lot of them were keeping us as their secret,
Gotcha.
but word did start to spread. That's what kept our doors open. So let me go into what it actually is, and then we can tell some fun stories because there's a lot of people that are using it in the realm of tennis and pickleball and all that good stuff.
You know, it is so funny you just said that they keep it their secret. A lot of professional athletes, actually, I have found it very challenging to get them to share their secret sauce.
Yeah.
Because they feel like
Why
that's
would
their
they?
competitive edge.
Exactly. And we're looking for any little tiny edge we can get, right?
Absolutely. A 1% gain, you know, and for those of us in the healing modalities, we're like, no, we really want you to tell everyone about it because that referability within sports is, it's how we all find out about stuff, is by someone else we know, like, and trust, actually talking about their own experience using it, probably more than people going out randomly on Google and reading PubMed articles, right? At least that's been my experience. And as a clinician in my day job, I have to kind of work through this evidence-based practice. And yet what I find, really, it's personal testimonials that everybody at the end of the day just go, oh, you like it? Oh, I'll try it.
That's basically what kept us alive. They weren't sharing it with their competitors or even people on their team, but what would happen is they'd hear my story. And so they'd share it with their mom or their sister or their girlfriend or their dad. And so affinity marketing, people telling their own personal experience and then hearing my story, that's basically what kept us alive for the first few years.
Yeah. And it's partly it's got this journey. Sorry guys, the microphones are being a little funny today. Because it's sunny out. I don't know why. It's partly why I started the pod, was I just wanted to be the mouthpiece of all this stuff that no one else is talking about, because on this journey I have stumbled now across all these amazing things. Like when I walked in and saw the biocharger and I was like, I didn't even know one of those existed till I interviewed someone in Phoenix, and I had seen it on his website, and I'm like, there's people camped out in a circle around this like 21st century campfire.
Exactly.
Right? And that's how this journey continues. So you see it, you hear about it, you see it, you use it, you get the results, you start sharing about it. Let's get into what it is. And what we're going to do for those on YouTube, we're going to float just some pictures and some video so you can see what we're talking about. And if you are listening to this on like Audible or Spotify, you should go to either our YouTube channel at Pickleball Recovery on YouTube, or just to pickleballrecovery.com and watch, so you can see this space age technology for yourself, because you need to see it to believe it.
Yeah. So again, cyclic variations and adaptive conditioning. It basically looks like an egg-shaped pod. It has a hinge and it opens and closes. And when you're sitting inside of it, you're feeling different things. So you're feeling pressure changes, air density changes, temperature changes, because the higher you go in altitude, the colder it is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my head is going a million miles an hour. I'm like, where do I even start? So where I usually like to start is because when people see it for the first time, they think, is this a hyperbaric chamber? Because that's commonplace. A lot of people know about hyperbaric. There's been hundreds of studies, and it's been in medicine, Western medicine, for a long time. And so that's the first question. And CVAC is actually almost the opposite science. It's doing a lot of the same things physiologically and on a cellular level. In my opinion, it is the next generation of hyperbaric, and I'll tell you why. So when you're inside a hyperbaric chamber, you're basically in that chamber and you're being flooded with outsourced oxygen, which definitely has its place. Don't get me wrong. Burns, wound healing, there's some stroke applications. Definitely has its place. I feel, and for what we've seen on a human performance level, especially when we're dealing with professional athletes, when you are getting a source of whether it's a molecule, a nutrient, a peptide from an outsourced source, right? Your body becomes reliant on that and becomes lazy, because the body is so smart. Why do I have to work hard and produce red blood cells?
Absolutely.
So what happens over time with hyperbaric, the body thinks, oh, cool, I'm getting this oxygen. I don't need to produce as many red blood cells as I normally probably would. Well, what the CVAC does, because the higher you go in altitude, the less oxygen molecules there are, it innately, your body knows it needs to produce more red blood cells. So basically, your kidneys release a protein, EPO, erythropoietin, to your bone marrow, signals your bone marrow produce more red blood cells. What's great about CVAC is it's not employing anything chemical or artificial. And so it's not going to take you to like red flag zones. Like you've heard of athletes blood doping, right?
Yes.
It doesn't do that. There's no red flags. A lot of our professional athletes have to have baselines of where their blood is just so they can prove they're not doing anything illegal. Well, CVAC will take it to the highest levels before the red flags happen. So it basically, it optimizes the body to the best levels that it can be. So when you're in that space, the higher you go in altitude, the more red blood cells you're making. That's one component. The other components are, we've been working with a lot of stem cell doctors, a good handful for the last decade. And when they've done their small studies, they actually see that people who use CVAC have a 16 times greater on average stem cell production than people who don't. Well, we know what stem cells do. It's all about regeneration.
Yes.
And that's specific to endogenous stem cells. It's also inducing something called mitochondrial biogenesis. So mitochondria is what we need to produce our energy and go and perform.
That's the factory.
Exactly. And as we age, a lot of times our mitochondria, our batteries to our cells, become dysfunctional.
Yep.
Well, CVAC is helping in that cause as well.
Brilliant.
Another huge difference between CVAC and hyperbaric is high pressure.
Yep.
CVAC is low pressure.
Gotcha.
And it's very dynamic, CVAC is. So instead of going to exactly 1 atmosphere or, a certain level, CVAC constantly is changing. So within a 20-minute CVAC session, you can go through 300 to 500 pressure changes.
Wow.
I know. So let's visualize that. And the easiest way to visualize it is you take an empty plastic water bottle with a lid on it, okay?
Yes.
You're sitting inside the pod. With every pressure change, you can see it expand and contract. When we're going up to 22,500 feet, which is highest that CVAC pods will go, that's higher than base camp of Mount Everest, by the way.
Okay.
It will actually collapse and then whoosh, again. So that you don't feel that necessarily on the outside of your body,
right,
but that is happening to every cell in your body. So in regards to waste, toxins, inflammation, lactic acid, there is nothing like CVAC for recovery on a cellular level because it's genuinely working out each cell. Also helps mitigate, oxidative stress, free radical damage, metabolic waste. It's just ridding what's not supposed to be in the body, and then it's building up what you want.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
there's two things that come to mind that are kind of just right from all of the things you just said. And again, guys, if you're watching me hold the mic here, who knows what's going on, but I'm a sound guy, so I want this to sound good for everybody. One, I don't want to overlook, which is stem cell production. A quick little thing to help people understand about stem cells, that I think is so important in terms of their job of repair, right? We have any kind of damage. The body sends stem cells, which are it's almost like a utility player on the team. Like they don't have a jersey number or a position. They're just on the team and they can play any position, right? So when the body has damage to blood, then it's like, okay, I want you to go be blood. If it has damage to bone, I want you to be bone. If it has damage to muscle, I want you to be muscle. And it gets released and it gets sent to the repair site, basically, 100%. To do reconstruction. Yes. Am I summarizing that
100%.
in kind of like English?
That's such a great analogy.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And so as our body ages, what we know is our regeneration, our ability to repair, our reconstruction suffers.
Well, and can I tell you exactly why?
Yeah.
So when we're babies, our stem cell production is optimal.
Right.
We're building all of our systems. We're growing.
Exponentially.
Exactly.
Yep.
Even by the time we're a teenager or 20 years old, our stem cell production has dropped and some of our stem cells are becoming dormant. By the time we are 60 years old, we probably only have 10% of stem cell production. If you're going with the normal aging process. By the time you're 70, you have none.
Wow.
Unless you're doing something like CVAC or you're increasing your GHK copper peptide. And we can talk about that on another podcast because there's actually a way you can do that that's proven and incredible.
That's cool.
So that can be a discussion
Stay
for
tuned
sure.
for a future episode. Yes, part 3.
But so with the aging process, so much becomes either dormant or just not operating the way it should be.
Yep.
Stem cell production being one, especially when it comes to pluripotent stem cells,
Yes.
which are the ones that can turn in to any cell your body needs, just as you explained with the team.
Yeah.
So that was really good.
There you go. You can borrow that.
Thank you.
Yeah. My daughter went through a stem cell transplant and I was forced to get a PhD in, stem cellology to make sense of it all.
There's a lot.
And I think, one of the great things some doctors do is some are able to translate into English what's happening better than others. And I was writing a blog about her and my job was to tell all our friends and family what was going on in English because I couldn't just pass on the word pluripotent stem cell. No. You know, it's just they check out. They're like, so how are the Phoenix Suns doing? You know, and they're sports and weather next, kids. Sports and weather. So that was a good kind of wake up call for me. But you said 16x.
That on average. I mean, these are very small studies.
No, but that's okay, because the other thing about math is for people to understand what 16x really means. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of just try to translate into a different way? Like, that doesn't mean twice as much.
No.
It's not 100% increase. We're in like 1,000 plus 16, right? Like this is exponential increase. So it's like when you tell someone about like an earthquake and you're like the Richter scale, nobody knows what the Richter scale is, right?
So, yeah, that's a good question. And in fact, I mean, because like I said, it's been a few stem cell doctors that we've worked with, and that on average is what they find.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not a mathematician, so what does that mean?
But it's massive.
It is massive.
It's massive.
Yeah, because it's like you said, it's not 2 times more.
Right.
It's not 3 times more.
No,
it's 16
we're not
times
tripling
more.
it. And that's important in research because a lot of times you'll have like a 5% increase in something and you're like, woohoo.
Yeah. Well, and we'll talk about an increase up to 5% when it comes to VO2 max, because there's another study with CVAC that talks about that. But real quick, when we're talking 16x, because there was another marker that I had measured personally and my staff as well. And it was something to do with natural killer cells.
Oh, yeah.
And so it
NK
was,
cell.
Yeah, exactly. And my production or activity. So they were measuring the activity of your natural killer cells.
Yep.
Mine was actually 16 times greater than people that weren't using CVAC.
Wow.
And we actually went, and a couple of clients that weren't using CVAC at the time we were able to quantify the buildup of their activity over time. So in regards to immune function, I mean, I know this is not what we're really focused on here because we're talking about recovery, but it plays a role. We want to keep ourselves healthy to stay on the courts, I'm sure.
100%, because your immune system is like an energy hog. And so if you're sick, your calories are going to getting healthy and not repairing. And so if your immune system's working properly, then you can be working on performance. That's massive. And because of systemic inflammation as the result of, anything in your system that you're fighting, right? Then that's working against you. So it is related. Immune system functioning, totally related. So that was the first piece that I just wanted to touch on, was like, we look for these tiny gains. That's not a tiny gain.
No.
It's a massive gain.
Yeah.
Right. So that was really cool because I was just doing some research on hydration, and the result of like tiny percent deficits in hydration led to massive deficits in production. Right. So it wasn't 16x, it was like 1 to 5%.
Yep.
Leads to this diminished returns on X, Y, Z, P, D, Q. And I was like, that's all it takes. So I think that's really important for people to understand. If you want to keep your body regenerating, this is one of the great ways you can do it.
Yes.
So yeah, brilliant.
Another thing that people love is the University of Hawaii study. I don't know if I shared that with you, but this was one of the first studies that CVAC actually did specific to CVAC systems. And they took category 1 athletes, so people that should already have a pretty good VO2 max, lung capacity, and they were able to prove their lung capacity increasing up to 5%. On a person who is not an elite athlete, they can actually increase it up to 20%. I have seen firsthand when people come in with compromised lungs, whether it be fibrosis of the lungs, or we've had a couple people that were put on ventilators and actually made it out of the hospital, but their lung capacity was so compromised, and I mean, everything was compromised, where CVAC played a huge role in getting them back to where they once were.
Wow.
So it plays a huge role in lung capacity, which is very important for endurance and to crush the competition.
Yes.
So
yes.
And then, so that's like the performance aspect, right? And then the increase in EPO performance aspects. So there's performance aspects, and then there's recovery aspects. In my opinion, the CVAC is really, recovery is the number one point of sports performance. I mean, it should be one of the focuses, because you can only perform as good as you are recovered. And CVAC, that's really what it's working on, just getting you. I mean, we talk about UFC fighters that come in, because that's been a big market for us.
No kidding.
And just even after a couple weeks, they start talking about, my gosh, in between rounds where I would normally barely be able to catch my breath, I am caught up in 30 seconds and like ready to go. I mean, that plays a very big role.
That's a big difference. Yeah. One of the things in pickleball that people forget is, So there's this illusion that it's not athletic and that it's for old people. So those are the two big myths we crush, right? But one of the big things in pickleball is time between points. In pickleball, you play 3 times as many points per minute as you would in tennis.
Okay.
Because you're not chasing the ball all over a bigger court and you're not wasting time with service and service faults. And in fact, you only have 10 seconds to start the next point. So once you pick up the ball and the ref calls a score, if you're playing a ref match, but just even in rec play, we're playing very fast. And what that means to the body is the body can't recover breath or heat as quickly. So temperature regulation, we stay hotter, higher, and we don't get a chance to recover cardiovascularly because we don't have as much break in between points. And it's one of those things that's elusive. People don't realize. So if you're gaining VO2 max, you're gaining the ability to reset between points and 100%. Be fresh a lot faster, as well as being able to just play longer and play well longer. Yes. So yeah, great. So essentially, if I get this right, being the translator, like when I get in the CVAC pod, it's simulating me basically going on kind of an Uber roller coaster of atmospheric pressure, right? And it's massaging my insides, but I don't feel perceptually the same amount of squeeze that's happening.
No, but you do feel it in your ears.
You do. Yeah, that would make sense.
Exactly. So your eustachian tubes actually expand and contract with the pressure changes. Okay. Your eustachian tubes are one of the most flexible things in your body. So that's what adapts fastest. And that's how we gauge how we start moving up. Okay. But with CVAC, higher is not better. So most of the professional athletes that are coming in, they're doing a combination of high and low. So they're getting both sports performance and then also recovery. Okay. But yeah, I mean, when you first sit inside of a CVAC pod, we only take you to 3,600 feet. Okay. You've been to that elevation a ton of times in your life. Yep. I can actually put an infant that's never cleared their ears or even knows how to in at that level. Oh, wow. So it kind of gauges for us how sensitive your ears are or how flexible they are. And so after 5 minutes, we have a discussion. Oh, that was a breeze. Great. We're going to go to 5,200 feet. Some people that come in are very immunocompromised and there's systemic inflammation everywhere. It's going to be affecting their sinuses and ears, whether they know it or not. Yep. So their journey is a lot faster. Okay. I would say the majority of athletes are able to just progress, and we go on customized programs depending on, what they're trying to work on or what they're preparing for as far as competition. But you definitely feel, I've been doing CVAC for 13 years. Wow. I can sleep through a drop at 22,500 feet to sea level in 1.5 seconds. No problem, but that's not how it starts out, right? So most of the time when you tell that to someone and they're in the CVAC pod, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to sleep through here. Right. But if people consistently do it, that does happen. In fact, an hour's worth of sleep in the CVAC pod is equivalent to 5 hours of sleep. That's a big deal.
That's a huge deal.
And the other thing that CVAC's doing, which is really important to recovery, it's working with your lymphatic system to really flush out. So this might be TMI, but we're going to go there.
No, let's go there because most people, like your lymph system, like the sewage system, like most people are undereducated on what it is and how important it is and so all the ways that when it goes wrong, it can be disastrous. So 100%. Let's go there.
Okay, cool. So when you're sitting in the CVAC pod and you're going through those pressure changes and each one of your cells is expanding and contracting, your cells all have a membrane around them, cellular permeability. And if you're functioning great, all the good stuff's getting in, all the bad stuff's getting out. As we age, as we have certain diagnoses, those cell walls become more hardened and rigid. And so now the waste and toxins have a harder time getting out. Well, with CVAC, because it's genuinely working out each cell, it is allowing for that to escape. And then it goes in concert and works with the lymphatic system to flush out. So when people first start using CVAC, they are probably going to be going to the restroom more than usual. Okay. In fact, water plays a huge role. We have excellent water here. Then we actually encourage people to drink, 16 ounces during each 20 minute. Okay. But they will use the restroom a lot more. Okay. The smell is different because you're excreting waste waste and
Yes.
toxins.
Yes.
And sometimes those waste and toxins have been built up in the cells for years. I mean, anesthesia usually just resides in the cells. CVAC is a way to get that out.
Wow.
So it's definitely cleaning house. And then really important, and what most people don't even realize, our brains have its own lymphatic system called the glymphatic system. And that usually is activated during sleep.
Yep.
Well, it's activated in the CVAC pod. And
Right.
so sitting in the CVAC pod, once you get comfortable in there, it's actually going to put you into more of a parasympathetic state,
Great.
which is super important for recovery.
Yep.
And then it's going to activate the glymphatic system to clean out the brain as well. So when it comes to athletes coming in that have traumatic brain injuries, concussions,
Yep.
we have an actual protocol for that. And, there's some small studies. So with CVAC, it's not, classified a class 2 medical device like the 10 other modalities we have here.
Right.
It's still, I would consider it early adoption. I mean,
Yep.
you probably, even, when was it? 2012, there was an article in Wall Street Journal. Novak Djokovic was using it back then.
Wow.
And there was actually a Wall Street Journal.
How about that?
But it's still super unknown. There's
Yep.
only about 70 something CVAC pods in the world. Is that crazy? We
That
have
is
2.
And you have 2.
And there's only about 25, 30 open to the public
We're
at this
down
point.
to 68. Yeah. Oh, you're a hog. All right. You've got 2. You're like, I've got 2.
Fine.
That's like real estate. That's
It is.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And how many are only open to the public?
Now, because they've been installing, so CVAC
Okay.
is starting to really take off and grow.
Gotcha.
And when I say that, I mean an install a month right now, I would say, is generous. But they just installed one in Oklahoma, just installed one in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, like week after week. So,
Wow.
and I'm lucky to be privy to where everything's
Where it's
popping
going
up.
in,
So
yeah.
they're under 30 open to the public.
Wow.
I know.
And when it's so funny because it's such a small number. When you hear about it, you're like, hooray. It's
Yeah.
like giving birth to a relative, like, yay, one more.
Yeah. Well, and I just feel so blessed because it's what we started with.
Yep.
And so over a decade of time, we have really come up with some incredible protocols for whatever someone's coming in for.
That's cool.
And we've lived and learned. We had a lot of guinea pigs at the beginning.
Well, each one of us is a guinea pig of our own journey, like on our, an N of one study. I mean, that's what biohacking is. It's like, okay, here are the things out there, what works for your body. And, you kind of have to, do that to some, that's the only way you're going to find out what works. Right.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you talking about the brain recovery too, because when I got diagnosed with a TBI in 2017 down the road at Amen Clinics, Dr. whoever was, I'm sorry, doc, I forgot your name. It wasn't Dr. Amen. His medical director was my doc at the time. And he another analogy, he was like, when you sleep, your brain basically runs a rinse cycle very similar to your dishwasher. So you set your dishwasher to run overnight and it cleans all the stuff off your plate so you can use them again the next day. He goes, same thing's going on in the brain. And because of all the inflammation and damage, like sleep deprivation for me, he's like, that's really going to slow down your recovery from this. So you have to fight for your sleep. So like I don't negotiate around sleep. Like it's like, it's non-negotiable. Right. But a lot of people burn the midnight oil, and live that lifestyle. And so just imagining the type A personalities who would love to get their hands on a CVAC for no other reason that like all the extra productivity. Just think of all the more things I could do if I could sleep less. But in all seriousness,
it's also a great place to multitask in the CVAC pod. So
okay.
I mean, we have them here, and it's one of our technologies that's usually fully booked. But if there's an opening or someone does a last minute cancel, like I'll jump in there with my laptop and multitask. And then even the CEO, when he first tried it, I think it was like 20 years ago, not the inventor, but the CEO, he was, I think, in his 60s at the time and kind of dealing with some cognitive decline.
Yep.
He was still sharp as could be by standards that most accept, but he could feel a difference from when he was in his prime. And he said after doing one CVAC session or that exposure, that initial visit, it was like a windshield wiper over his brain, and the clarity and the cognition was pretty substantial as far as improvement. So
that's cool. I like it.
Pretty neat.
Love an analogy. We got the dishwasher, we got the windshield wiper, we've got the construction crew.
The team.
We got the team. That's right. We're going down the list today. So how often, I mean, I guess it depends on what the client is working on.
Yes.
So let's just talk about an athlete who's working on optimal performance and recovery. How often are they in it? How long are those sessions? And do they do it for a certain number of time, or is it like in perpetuity? Like, talk me through.
That's a
best
great
practices.
question. So we have all different instances. I mean, obviously we have, UFC fighters that are preparing an 8-week or 10-week camp. Those guys are almost coming every single day after a training and then before their next training, because most of them are training a couple times a day.
Okay.
We have people that are training for certain races, for mountain biking. Most people, it's a buildup effect. So the more you upfront load, you're going to actually get the benefits faster. And then once your body gets to the highest levels of that red blood cell production, we've flushed out what's supposed to be flushed out. The body is performing at optimal levels. To maintain, we want you to get at least 4 to 6 CVAC sessions a week.
Okay.
But most people are coming and they're doing 3 back-to-back sessions. So they're here a couple times a week for an hour.
Oh.
Yeah, we have a handful of clients that have been with us since 2013 through 2012. We had a big article in 2013 in Men's Journal that actually featured Ascent and then the CVAC pods. And we had clients from that have stayed to now, and they're still going. In fact, one just left this morning before you got here.
Wow.
I'm going to say his name because he's one of our OGs,
There
Jim Rogers.
Let's
we
go,
love
Jim.
him.
Let's go.
He comes twice a week, and he, 8 o'clock in the morning, and he's there for his hour, and he loves it. And he's in his 70s, and he literally is reverse aging. He's very active. Yeah. So, but it just depends. Like, what are the goals, right? We also have people where I'm an executive. I can only come once a week. Is an hour once a week going to be enough? Of course, because on the performance level, like especially we'll talk red blood cells. When new red blood cells are made, they live in the body for 120 days. Okay. So if you get your upload and you're at the highest levels, it's going to just slowly fall off after a series of months, right? Yep. So if we want to get to the high levels, the more you come at first, the better. Most people can work around, coming twice a week for an hour. That's what most people do.
Got it.
And then if they want to go on maintenance, we just have that conversation. A lot of our clients, because we're distributors of every technology we have, including the CVAC pods, a lot of our clients have the smaller priced and smaller space taking up modalities and devices at home. And then they'll come here for something like the CVAC or the red light, something like that.
Biocharger.
Yeah. Well, a lot of our clients have biochargers at home.
Wow. That's pretty cool. It's pretty fun. Like, there was a guy, I was on a practice court in Austin, Texas last week, and I'm warming up with some of the pros. And it was like I got the call up to practice with some of the young female pros, like I needed to be on. And one of the guys, he listens to the pod, and he was like, hey, do you got one of those 16 devices, hanging around? And he was talking about like one of the modalities we were talking about on the podcast.
That's so cool.
He started spouting out like, let's talk about getting one of those. I want to get one of those. And I was like right in the middle of playing, and I was like, can't talk right now, but love you. And I loved the shout, and I'm shouting you out right now. But it was really funny.
Cool.
Yeah, because people are, they want to know what's good for their body. It's the most important piece of equipment they own. It's the most expensive piece of equipment they own, right? And if it's not working, I don't care what paddle you have in your hand. No. So, this is where a lot of people they're kind of getting it, and they're starting with the body and then go out from there. If you can't move your body, it doesn't matter how well you swing. If you can't get to the ball, it's irrelevant. No. So, yeah. Awesome. Anything else about the CVAC? So there's really only one model of this. There's not a home version of this. No. And when I say home version, I mean, it's just the pods that we floated on the screen. That's the one thing.
The majority, because remember, only less than 30 are open to the public. The majority are actually in private homes. But we're talking professional athletes. We're talking people like Tony Robbins. They have these things at home. Yep. The normal person does not. Right. And, there's different generations. So when I first started, I had a CVAC pod. At the time, it was almost 20 years old. I had that bad boy for about 11 years.
Yeah.
And then we actually are the only facility in the world that has 2 brand new pods.
Wow.
So nothing's changed as far as software and the algorithms. The pods are constantly being refined to be lighter. Now we can do customized colors, which is fun. But no, as far as what it does, it's the same mechanism of action for sure.
Pretty cool. So is there a way for people to find where those public pods are?
Yeah, I mean, you can obviously contact us if you want. We'll let you know because we work with a lot of those centers and help with their protocols and everything. Or you can go onto the manufacturer's website. They're in Murrieta, California.
Oh, yeah.
So they are here.
Okay.
And there's a list of where you can actually find where to take a CVAC session, and they have it pretty good and updated. So yeah, all over the nation. And I think there's a few outside of the United States too on that list. So, but yeah, it's hopefully 10 years from now, there's going to be one on every single corner, and
there you go.
Everyone will have access to them.
Brilliant.
We'll see.
Awesome. And where do people find you and Ascent online?
Online, we are at www.ascentadaptation.com, or you can just put Ascent Newport Beach. Just make sure there's a center down the street that actually uses AscentAdaptation.com to get their SEO. So just make sure you just do Ascent Newport Beach, it'll come up. Or if you put Ascent CVAC, we're the only ones that come up.
There you go. And how do they follow you on social?
We are Ascent Adapt on Instagram, and then Ascent Adaptation on Facebook. And we're also Ascent Adaptation and Regeneration on YouTube.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right. Well, Heather, thanks again for joining us on Pickleball Recovery.
Thank you so much, Tim. It was
You're welcome.
so much fun.
Woo-hoo.
See you guys later. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. Do you want to know the number one mistake picklers make that leads to increased pain, soreness, stiffness, and injury? Just head over to www.pickleballrecovery.com and download my free guide to playing with less pain and more enjoyment. Listen, pickleball makes us feel young at heart, but not necessarily young in body. So go download my free guide at www.pickleballrecovery.com. See you next time.